Hello, and welcome to the Empowerography podcast. This is a platform created for women's voices to be heard and a place to share their stories, journeys, and successes with the world for the purpose of helping other women who might be on similar journeys. We are empowering women one episode at a time. I'm your host, Brad Walsh, so kick back, grab one of your favorite beverages, and enjoy the stories. If you've ever felt like your voice didn't matter, like your story wasn't worth sharing, you're not alone. At the Empowerography Live in-person conference this year, we brought together voices from around the world, women who chose to stand up, speak out, and share stories that changed lives. And here's the truth. Your voice matters too. If you've ever felt that pull to share your story as a guest on a podcast, to start your own podcast, or step into your power, this isn't random. It is your invitation. Head over to empowerographypodcast.com and see how you can turn your voice into impact, because your story isn't just yours. It's someone else's survival guide. Hello there, Brad Walsh here, your host of the Empowerography podcast, a platform that was created to help elevate and amplify the voices of women through sharing their stories. Today, my guest is Dr. Laleh. She is a molecular and cellular biologist, a nutritional healing doctor for high achievers, and the creator of the Precision Empowerment Pathway Method. Hello and welcome, Laleh. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me, and I am doing great.
Excellent. It is my pleasure and my honor. Thank you so much for taking and making the time to be here with me today. I am so excited to have you here and to jump in and share about all the beautiful light you put out into the world through the work you're doing, a little bit about your story and your journey. So with that being said, let us jump right in. So Laleh, before the degrees, the lab coats, and the titles, what was young Laleh's first memory of illness, loss, or fragility that stayed with her for long before you had language for it?
The very, very first memory, actually, now that you asked that question, is my grandfather died of cancer. Maybe I was about 7 or 8 years old. I couldn't quite understand what happened. I just know he was sick and then he was gone. But really what sort of transformed this understanding for me was my dad was diagnosed with advanced stage cancer when I was just about 14 years old. And it was the first time he went to the doctor, and he had full-blown cancer. And he died exactly a year after that on my 15th birthday. And that sort of started my obsession with cancer, if you will.
And so when you entered the world of genetics and molecular biology, what belief about healing then did you hold with almost a religious certainty?
Oh, great question. I really was always fascinated by the field of human genetics. And I obviously I majored in genetics and food biochemistry in college. And I really strongly believe that our genes just really determined our health and our outcome, and they were the boss, if you will. And I love the field of genetics, and I really enjoyed studying it, but that's how I went into it, and that's what I really believed when I graduated from college. So that's one thing that comes to mind.
Yeah. Now, had you had the plan when you were in school or even before you started school that this cancer was the direction you were going to go, like cancer research was the direction you were going to head in?
Yes. Before my dad died, we used to watch this science geek show together, and the host of the show was this scientist, and he seemed to know everything, although they had all the answers, of course. But I always told my dad that I wanted to become a scientist because I wanted to know everything. And when my dad died of cancer, I really became much more focused and obsessed with cancer. So I was going to be a research scientist. Yes, literally at 15. That was clear in my mind. I was going to be a scientist and I was going to cure cancer.
Wow. At 15.
Yeah.
The path was
chosen for me in a way.
Yeah, exactly. It shows you. So exactly 20 years after your father's death, you became a cancer researcher. Looking back now, Do you believe that the timing was coincidence or a calling finally catching up to you?
I don't believe in coincidences, really. But
Me neither.
it was a calling, and I had decided that for myself. But it took, you mentioned 20 years. It was exactly 20 years and 5 days after that. I really planned my PhD defense, if you will, thesis, but I couldn't get the day exactly right on my birthday. It took a lot of various different life circumstances. It took me longer because I had to flee the war in the country and my mom and all kinds of stuff. So it was almost a constant uphill battle, if you will, and people who didn't believe it was possible or it wasn't something that could kill, or so it was constantly like going against the stream, if you will.
Against the grain, right?
Yeah.
The doubters and non-believers and all that stuff.
There's all things that life throws your way.
Yeah, life, yeah, exactly. And how was your mother with you through this journey, knowing that you wanted to cure cancer from when you were a kid?
Interesting you asked. This takes a turn into the whole conversation. My biological mother actually never really wanted me to be born.
Wow.
So she was not the parent, the mom that you could imagine. My dad was everything, and she was a very self-centered person, and didn't really give much of the world around her other than what was relevant to her, which was basically what she wanted in life. Escaping from my country of birth, which was Iran, during the war, was almost something I had to do. I survived my mom once, and I had to survive her again. And it was almost a mutual feeling of me leaving and she cutting me out so she could go on.
Wow.
So that's like where she stood. But I don't have a relationship though. Since 2011, I completely haven't had any relationship with her. So my dad was a real, true influence in my life in every way, even for the short 15 years we had together.
He was your world.
He was my world, and he was the reason that the way I do everything I do in life. So
I can't even imagine. That must have been absolutely earth-shattering to lose him then, because he was your world.
Yeah, it was a scary thing to feel like he was gone, and now I was left her again. So
wow.
Yeah, so it was motivator to like kind of be able to leave.
But at 15, where are you going to go at 15?
At the time, it took me a couple of years, but I did leave at
wow.
And left the country and left the political upheaval and the war in Iran, Iraq at the time. It was the worst time of war. It was the missile war when you didn't know what was going on. You were just like, and there was a bomb. And you had to reset. You don't know if you had or not.
Jeez.
That, and I didn't have to university would be in Italy anymore because she wanted her life and whatever freedom.
Yeah.
I left the country at 17, and I ended up as a political refugee in Belgium. Don't ask me what it will take a long time to explain. But anyway, that's where I ended up. And so I did. It took 2 years, but I was still pretty young to be in a different country. But
yeah, no kidding.
Great learning experience.
I'm sure. That's absolutely incredible. The resilience and the courage is just incredible. Wow. I applaud you. That is amazing. At 17 to move from a war-torn country to a completely different country on your own. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow. So how did your father's death silently shape the way you understood responsibility, purpose, and the meaning of doing such important work that you wanted to do?
My dad really shaped my life pretty much. He was a very disciplinarian. He was very strict about school and academic performance, if you will. So an A minus was not good, was not enough. And so that was instilled in me from the beginning, even though at the time I didn't feel like this is unfair. My friends can get a B and I can't get an A minus. He literally wouldn't sign my reports if it wasn't a perfect score. And he would write a comment on it. Later on, I realized that that's really shaped the way I do things. And it was he had very amazing work ethics. He worked very hard. and he made really good money. But I never really knew how wealthy my dad was until much, much later, because he was a down-to-earth person and he helped people without anybody knowing. I learned all of this afterwards, and I'm like, wow, my dad was that rich. Oh my goodness. The fact, years and years after that, my biological mom basically never worked in her life at all, ever. And not to this day. So to me, that was a big lesson for me, that you really earn your everything. And even if you have money, it's not what defines you.
Yeah.
You in life what defines you. And really the discipline, it's what shaped my life. And one other thing is that lying was the absolute biggest sin. So if you do whatever you did, it didn't matter. You could just tell the truth.
Yeah.
And if you lied about it, it was worse. So
yeah, for sure.
I'm the worst liar, if you will.
Those are incredibly powerful lessons, but that's a lot of pressure on a kid to perform at that level constantly and to stay at that level. That's a lot. How do you even be a kid when you have to perform like this?
Well, in so many ways, was he actually really allowed us to be kids. Wanted me to have a childhood. Don't grow up too fast. At 13 or 14, what I see in kids today is that makeup was out of the question, because if you're a child, you need to live your childhood like it.
Yeah,
just
which makes sense.
Take these times. That was something, simple things, but also really paying attention to your potentials as a child. It was what my dad did, and without really expressing too much, but really rewarding good performance with things that you really wanted as a child. For example, like I wanted a bicycle. I was like the bicycle, and I never knew that he had planned that. So it was just that kind of a relationship. You got rewarded for your performance in ways you never imagined. Who was listening, or who knew that you got that? But it was very intuitive that way. So, yeah.
Amazing. That's one hell of a way to grow up, and a lot of valuable, very valuable lessons for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
That shaped who you are today. That's incredible. With some people, Laleh, there's a moment when a career becomes a mission, a purpose. When did you realize that you weren't just studying cancer, but trying to protect people from the pain that you once lived through, seeing what your dad went through?
There is a picture I hold in my mind of my dad and myself. I was about 7 or 8 years old. We're in our bathing suits, standing in front of the Caspian Sea in northern Iran. Before the Islamic Revolution happened, then we were walking around on the street with our bathing suits, and he was strong, he was healthy, he was my god and idol and everything. And then when he was sick, the last days of his life, he was literally shriveled down, destroyed on his deathbed, barely weighing 100 pounds. And when I was doing research, the moment for me was seeing people being really vulnerable and sick, and remembering that moment when my dad died. It was constant, that sick image that I had in my head, rather than that strong, healthy man I knew. And I just felt like people shouldn't see that. People should have that image of their loved ones in their head for the rest of their life. And that shouldn't be the way we go. Possible, which I feel was possible. So that was the defining moment for me, when I would see people going through a treatment with their life basically destroyed in a way.
Withering away to nothing.
No longer there. It was just hanging on to life, which is a big difference in my mind.
For sure. That's an incredible motivator, that image of your father. Now, did your father, when he was going through his battle with cancer, was it very quick, or was it long and drawn out?
No, it was actually very quick. So my dad never went to the doctor in his life. And he was fighting his illness for a year, and he was losing weight and everything. So he went to the doctor with a lot of pressure from us, and he had advanced stage cancer, and he had 4% chance of surviving a surgery. That meant taking the stomach, gallbladder, spleen, part of the intestine, and one kidney out. So think about that, 4% chance of survival without all of those things. And he did. He survived that, which was 4 surgeons in his surgery. They couldn't believe that he actually lived through that. And he
Mm.
lived past that without all the organs in his body, which is phenomenal that you can do that.
Jeez.
But he had a mission. He really had in mind to set us all for life. And the last year, it was really a year from the time he had that till he died. It was that last year for me was really what you call it transformational, or really paved the path, because I had lots of conversations with him. And he would just tell me, he knew he was going to die about it. And he just would tell me things that I needed to know and do, and what was important. Yeah. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, that's a lot of responsibility on a 15-year-old kid.
Yeah.
It's a lot to deal with and process and go through.
Yeah, it makes you
First
grow
of
up
all,
fast.
losing your, for sure, you're losing your father, your world. Plus, here's what I need you to take care of. Here's what you've got to do moving forward. That's a hell of a lot to deal with.
Yeah, but it was valuable because in one way, I always say I was forced to grow up fast, but also in a way, I'm really grateful for it.
Yeah.
Because I never struggled with things that typical teenagers do.
Right. Yeah.
It wasn't there. It wasn't an issue.
No, definitely not. When you think about the things that you hear teenagers and young kids complain about today compared to what you had to deal with and go through,
I mean, with that, because I feel like if those things were never important.
Yeah, you were focused on your father and losing him, and then all the responsibility that was going to come after. Yeah, exactly. That is huge, huge. What did working inside cancer research teach you about the limits of brilliance when it's disconnected from humanity?
In research in general, we create data. We do experimentation. We go by statistical data. Statistics are a very powerful tool for us to draw conclusions, scientific conclusions about any scientific discovery, if you will, including and especially disease and cancer. If the disconnect comes in, while statistics are important, are not statistics. Every single individual is their own person. And that is where the disconnect happens, because we put all people into statistical data.
Right.
These are your odds, which is not human. And most of the time. And so that is where there is a huge human disconnect. And when you're so focused, and I've been guilty of it, when you're so focused on your research and what you are aiming to find, and you are trying to prove your hypothesis, you are so focused on that statistical data that you sometimes lose sight of what's the big picture. Why am I doing that? And that is part of science, part of scientific research. When you stay focused on,
Now you no longer work in the cancer research industry, so I'd love for you to share with us and take us inside that moment when the path you devoted your life to no longer felt like the truth, and what was the catalyst for you to step outside of that?
There were wake-up calls for me. But one thing that really defined that moment for me was I had already started thinking about, when I was in clinical research with him, a great boss and wonderful, and he was supportive of my ideas, but the academic world was not. And moved on into another position because funding ended. And so I was doing more public health and community cancer prevention. And so I started kind of incorporating some of my philosophies into my work. For example, meeting with cancer patients during their support groups and talking about nutrition, and even actually cooking with them, which was, I got into trouble big time for that.
Wow.
And my boss, who was basically the director of the cancer center at the time, told me that your job is to get people on clinical trials, register, and to fill the beds. Teaching people about eating healthy doesn't fill the hospital beds. And that is when I thought, I need to get out of here.
Wow.
Yep. And that was basically, and the irony of being in a cancer center, working in a cancer center, and watching the director of the cancer center being one of the unhealthiest people I know. And they would bring food for all the people who, all of us included, was as if we were trying to kill people. And it was just the disconnect. And then promoting terrible things for cancer patients. There was this thing called the comfort card. In infusion room, I remember I was in transplant programs, so I was in an infusion room with cancer patients, and they would bring these comfort cards that was donated that were funded by the cancer center. And on the comfort card was everything that causes cancer, including sugar-laden snacks and just fake foods and colored foods. And to me, it was like, are we trying to kill these people faster? Because that works. And
that's what it would seem like.
This disconnect that, for me, it was like, am I the only person who sees this? No one else does. It's disturbing, to say the least.
Were you able to have conversations with your colleagues about this and share how you felt? And if so, did they see what you saw, or they just went along with the narrative? Or
for the most part, if it was my scientist colleagues, were like, it was a minor thing.
How was that minor?
In the cancer world or chronic conditions, I felt that most of the time people are thinking they have cancer, so let them have that, as if they've already given up. While my attitude was, the cancer is just a wake-up call. Okay, it's not the end of their life. So let's just separate those two. And to me, was, and it still is, it's just a one-time thing, but it's not going to kill someone. No, it's not going to kill someone right then and there, but what contributed to this, actually. And so I was probably the minority. I want to say colleagues who are not in science, like administrative workers, and it resonated with them because a lot of people struggle with their health and weight and things like that. And what comes to food as free is pizza and cookies and soda. And many of them say, if this wasn't there, I wouldn't eat it. Yeah, it was a huge disconnect, and I think still is, but we've come a long way. It's getting better, but not nearly where we should be.
What would your scientist colleagues say that weren't of the same mindset when you would present them with things like this? What would they say to you? What was the response?
It was, that's the life they lived, most of them. There were quite few, maybe few people that did not, but the lifestyle is there. You go to a scientific seminar, you go to meetings, you go to everything, and all you're fed is carcinogenic laden food. And nobody sees that because it is almost as if it doesn't happen to me, or that's not important, secondary. We're talking about the genetic predispositions or mutations that cause cancer. Yes, that's there, but actually it's flipped. Yes, we have genetic predispositions, but guess what? Every cancer is a multi-hit disease. So it's not like you get the hit and you get it. Like cystic fibrosis, for example, it's a genetic disease. You need second, third, fourth hits for that cancer to actually come into life, right? So you can actually not have those hits, which, what do I mean by hits? Your diet, your lifestyle, your stress, your sleep, your epigenetics. And all of that there is this disconnect, right? We know there is this mutation in breast cancer, but what actually activates that gene is a whole different story.
There's different triggers that are going to trigger it, to start it, to open it up and cause that. But how can these scientists, how can they not see that? You studied this.
Yeah, it is hard to, I think it's something when you believe, like I told you, I went into college and believed, and I love the field of genetics, and I still do, I really do. But my belief was, what our genes give us is basically that, right? And you learn that. But what is not true is that it's just the starting point. Your genes don't define you, and you can actually affect your epigenetic factors to influence the expression of those genes. So that is where there is a lot of disagreement. And because we want to focus on something we think we can tangibly do, and it's this gene, and if I figure out how to fix it, that would be giving me the whatever recognition in research, if you will, public research, publications, funding, all of that, all the way go to the Nobel Prize, whatever. But it's not as simple. for me, the
Yeah.
call was, yes, I love the genetics field and I love the science of genetics, but
Mhm.
that doesn't really define everything about our health as a whole.
Yeah. You must I can't even imagine the frustration you must have felt. You must have wanted to just scream it from the rooftops, like, "Wake the fuck up, people. What are you doing?
Yeah,
You were looking at
exactly
this
what
all
you're mixing up.
wrong."
Yeah, which is basically when I had the few clues here that I don't think I'm in the right place. But
Wow.
anyway,
What truth did you uncover then that made you realize prevention was the real revolution as opposed to prescriptions and all of these
yeah, that's going to upset a lot of people. It always does, but it's the truth. Is that over percent of all chronic conditions, including cancer, are preventable, manageable, and treatable without toxic chemicals, with really how we treat our body, how we fuel our body, and how we think. That's more important. And
Would you say, sorry, Lale, would you say that's probably one of the biggest pieces is this, the mindset
yes,
and how we
this
think?
is where I run an outlaw compared to a lot of scientists
Okay.
because that is something that's not accepted yet. And the
Mhm.
second truth was for me was that I saw that most cancer patients, including my dad, die not of their cancer if they have a chance. They die of organ failure due to toxic therapy.
So the treatments.
Treatments. Now, I'm not saying treatments should be completely taken off,
No,
but,
no.
but the truth is, if we just take a step back and think about what are the ways or things that contribute to our getting sick, chronic
Mhm.
conditions, and cancer. What are those things? And if we just took a step back and eliminated those things, we would prevent 80% of cancers and chronic conditions.
Wow.
Now, that 20% is seriously conditions that, yes, there are genetic factors and there are things that we can't really undo, but we can have an influence on, even those kinds of. But that is something that we are they're not talked about. The first thing a person is told when they are diagnosed with cancer is, what are your treatment options? But there is no speaking of what can you do for yourself, because there is a lot that we can do ourselves that are not toxic and that are not harmful. So those
Mhm.
things for me was very, I don't know, was something I couldn't live with. It was,
Yeah.
I didn't want to be a drug dealer because I found people with things that are going to affect their life forever, long term, and they are not necessarily saving lives. They're just prolonging life in some ways, and the quality of life is not what matters. I remember one of the final things was I had a nephew who was
Mhm.
diagnosed with a very severe, so crazy mutations of leukemia at about 6
Mhm.
months old. This baby was 6 months old. And I was reached because I studied leukemia and blood cancers, and I was looking at these mutations. I'm going, whoa, what happened? All I could think about is pre-birth, the lifestyle and the diet and all of that that could have affected this.
Yeah.
And all I could think about, they were asking me, so this treatment or that treatment? And I could see, okay, both treatments have something going on. And one of the biggest things that was really hurtful to me, as knowing the 6-month-old baby was
Mhm.
really, was there is one of these therapies that basically causes long-term, lifetime cardiac damage.
Gee.
So the child is perfectly good right now, very healthy, but there is always that thing that sometime in his lifetime he's going to have some effect of that, and it literally kept me up for a few nights trying to make
Yeah.
this decision as a scientist who was doing this research. I know what this drug does, and he's only 6 months old. I could see that in someone 60 years old. Okay, there's time. Look what it's so young, and it was just like, this can't be the only way. And it's just you become, it's disturbing to think about, especially when you
That
think
is.
about think about this. Cancer
Mhm.
used to be an age-related disease. It was a
Okay.
chronic disease. More and more do we see cancer in younger
Yes.
generation, young
Mhm.
adults, even children. Young children, what happened? think about it.
Yeah.
We are feeding our kids carcinogens on a daily basis. They're going to get cancer.
Yeah. And the mothers, when they're carrying the child in the womb,
they don't
their
know it's not
diet.
the blame, but they don't know that's what
No.
they are, and that's basically the opposite reality. Nobody talks about this, and so it's, of course, that's why I always say it's why do we see childhood cancers? Think about what you feed your children. It's gonna happen. While
there's also environmental,
of course, it's just not
effects as well.
Effects, there's toxins in the environment, toxins that we're exposed to, food, style. Just think about it, all the things that children are exposed to that they really shouldn't.
Yeah. And this is exactly why I love having these conversations, because we need to talk about this stuff. As you said, it doesn't get talked about. So these are the platforms where we need to be having these conversations to help educate people so that they know what's out there and that there are alternatives and that these are the things that you can do to prevent these things from happening to better your life. You said 20% is genes, but that 20% in the genes can be affected by being preventative with nutrition, exercise, environmental things, just having the wherewithal and the understanding and the knowledge to know that, okay, I've got to stay away from this. I should be doing this. I shouldn't be eating this. Like all of these things. So you can prevent it.
Yeah. And even 20% is not just genes, are even less than that, but it's biological factors. I would say there are 20%. Genes are even less than that. I would say 10% are your genes. As much as, like I said, I love the field of genetics, but it's not all genetics. So it is biological factors, including genetics, is maybe about 20%. But 80% is preventable, really.
Wow, that is mind-boggling. And doctors they're not talking about it.
So they're not practicing it. You got to think about this. How many doctors do you know who are unhealthy themselves?
True. Wow. What did it cost you then, professionally and personally, to choose prevention over prescriptions?
So professionally I became the voodoo scientist or the outlaw, which I'm fine with that. I'm out so many ways, and I'm okay with that.
What's wrong with being an outlaw?
Stand out and to blend in.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing, that you got a Ph.D. and you get all this time, and now you're gonna leave. That was the one professionally, and being the person who speaks about, yes, these are preventable. It's not all about the discoveries we make, and drug discovery is not the only way. In fact, not the best way. And leaving the comfort of a secure job, an income, and benefits, and the comfort of that, it was a scary thing. I did this part-time for many years before I blew free. And a big hit in income was the first thing.
Yeah.
And going from employed by an academic institution and having all the benefits to all of a sudden becoming an entrepreneur. And I was a scientist. I had no business being a businesswoman. Still don't think I can do, but I didn't know any of that. So it was very, very foreign. There was things I knew. I know how to be a scientist. I know how to solve problems. I didn't know the worship, and I was really not very good with money matters. And I knew I worked. I got paid.
Yeah.
I got promoted. I got paid more. But when you're trying to be fly free, it's a whole different game.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a couple of things.
So when you left, though, Laleh, was it more on the ethical side for you personally? You just couldn't ethically deal with and do the things that they were asking, or was it a lot of frustration? Was it a combination of both? What was it?
It was a combination of both, but most of the thing that weighed on me was the ethical aspect of being able to sleep at night, knowing that you are doing the right thing. And that wasn't there for me because I couldn't be confident in my heart. And I could see and what happens to people and what could be prevented rather easily. I'm not saying it's easy, but it is a lot easier to.
Yeah.
So it was more that it's really the battle I had, the conflicts I had myself, and my sister, who I no longer contact with, she's a physician, very much
Yeah.
in this world, and she would say, "Why don't you go work for Genentech?" I'm like, "But I'm going to discover, and I'm going to create drugs that is going to harm people, and how do I live with myself? Yes, I'll make a lot more money, but I'm going to be miserable."
People over profit, but it's the other way around. It's profit over people. And
Right.
so did you look at your colleagues and differently when you realized that, "Oh, what are we doing here? You can't tell me that these people didn't see the same thing you're seeing. They're smart people."
They are. I think maybe for some people, priority is or their belief system. I worked with some of the smartest people in the world, and they still are. But it's something. It's what you believe, and really what they truly believe is, and they are making a difference. It's just in a different way.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that they're bad people, but I know a lot of oncologists. That's what they know, and what they have been taught, and what they believe in truly. If that's what they believe, then good for them.
So how do we change this though? Is it going into the schools and changing the curriculum for doctors that
I
are
think
going
it
through?
I think it has to be people. People need to know that they do have control and they do have options. That's the biggest thing for me. When I work with people, they ask me, "There's this clinical trial, there's this," and I look at everything because I have the background that can translate that. I can say, "This is what it means, this is what this does, these are the pros and cons." You decide. That is when they know, do I want to do this or not? Do I feel good about this or not? It's a difference. And people need to know all of their options, and they need to understand that there's not just one way. That they can take control, even after a diagnosis has happened. That I always say, any diagnosis is kind of like the engine light in your car. And put a duct tape on it, you won't see it, but it won't go away, right? Like drug therapy, we're putting a duct tape on that light, right? Covering it up, rather than really knowing why something happened and how it happened, and maybe
getting to the root of it, not just the symptom.
Exactly.
Which is what Western medicine typically does.
Exactly. It's a symptom-driven system.
Yeah. Man, what did it feel like for you to admit, if only to yourself, that the system that you trusted wasn't designed to create health? It was designed to do the exact opposite.
Cheated, betrayed, lied to. All of those things come to mind. But also sometimes it is, you go through these, at least for me, I went through this phase of how stupid of me, like I should have seen this, or I'm part of this. I played along for some time, but ultimately you come at peace with the truth, regardless of circumstances, regardless of what appearances are. You find your truth, and that's what matters. And you have to pretty much rely on that truth, that your beliefs, basically. But yeah, it was like I said, when you're cheated in a relationship, that's what it feels like.
As you said, it was, you couldn't in good faith, good conscience, go to sleep, lay your head on your pillow, feeling good about what you did. So
exactly. Yeah.
What did your scientific training prepare you for, and what did it fail to teach you about healing, you think?
I really learned a lot. Scientific training was a lot about problem solving, and consistently working on solving a problem, focusing on that, which was great. I'm a problem solver. I always say I like to put the pieces of the puzzle together. That's what I do best, and that is what scientists do. Now, we in scientific research, we are constantly taught and told to focus and narrow your focus, which is good in research. I never forget this. When I was in graduate school, I was probably the only graduate student who bothered my advisor, because I was, but what is this? But what's that? What about this? What about that? So I was PhD in a way, not truly, but So she constantly told me, you are to focus on this gene and this gene only and how it affects leukemia studying, and you're trying to uncover phenomenon or a disease cause. It's really good to focus. What my struggle always was as a graduate student, and it no longer is, which is the disconnect I see. One that's necessary, like statistics, is well, I know this gene causes AML in people, and that's the percentage of the XYZ, right? But take a step back and say, what other things are important in this person's life? It's not just the gene for leukemia, but all these other things that are not necessarily common between all the people who get leukemia, but they give us information. So for me, that is the thing that I didn't get. The focus was good. Is this still good in different, depending on what you're doing, but really looking at the big picture and kind of see a 30,000 bird's eye view. Just in general. And that is something I think most of us, when we are doing research, we're so focused on that. It is narrow-minded way of looking at things in my mind. And I did struggle. And my advisor would tell you to this day that focus.
But asking questions is good. This is how we learn.
Exactly.
Okay, I want to dive a little deeper here and talk around the pharmaceutical industry here for a little bit, if you're okay with that.
Of course, yeah.
When an industry's revenue depends on long-term treatment, what incentive exists to prioritize permanent solutions?
Truthfully, not really. None. Because if you get someone off medication, consider this, and it's not just pharmaceutical companies, but it's what I call our secure system. It's a perfect business model, if you will.
Yeah.
If you say have high blood pressure, and you are given a medication, no speak of your lifestyle at all. What else you can take this pill? We control your blood pressure. Oftentimes that isn't even the case. I was talking to a client recently, and he's been on blood pressure medication for a long time. And I asked, how does this affect your life? And at first glance, he said, it doesn't really. And I thought, you take the medication? I said, yes. It has side effects, yes. Is your blood pressure fixed? No. So if you stop taking it, it goes back up, yes. Okay, so, right? And then we come into realization, yeah, like I'm dependent on this thing for the rest of my life. How much is it costing you? Insurance covers it, but guess what? Your insurance company is in this business model as well. And nobody's telling you about, you can actually do a lot of things with your food and lifestyle that could get you off the medication. Why? Because if we get you off, the junk food manufacturing company will be out of business. The insurance company will be out of business. The pharmaceutical companies definitely will be out of business. And so we'll be on a secure system. So think about to keep you in this loop, right?
So many people involved.
And how many people do you know, can you think about, that are on certain medications? Consider a simple thyroid medication. 10 women I know have thyroid problems, which they don't. And they go on a thyroid medication, and it's a lower dose. I want to bet my life on it, anything. If you know anybody who has gone on thyroid medication who actually went off after a while, the dose keeps going, and then they reach a point when there's a maximum dose and is no longer working. Okay, so now we're going to use this other medication to complement it, because the first one basically reached the maximum limit and it's no longer doing it. How many ads do you hear in the TV that says, if you are taking this medication for X problem, take this.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Now
it's crazy.
The side effect of the medication most of the time, right? So there you have it. What's the incentive? There is none, because there is no money in getting people off medications. Like my boss told you, there is no money in keeping the beds empty. We need the beds full. We need the clinical trials to get funding. That's how
That's horrible. It's an amazing business model for the businesses, for the companies, but it's absolutely horrible.
It's really good for you. Yeah. But if you're really, you're not so good.
Oh my God. In your opinion, what would happen to the current healthcare economy if cancer rates dropped dramatically due to lifestyle-based prevention?
A lot of pharmaceutical companies will be unhappy in business if it was, because it truly is possible And I think our sick care system will completely have to get a makeover. It does have to get a makeover. If that was the case, we would reach healthcare system. My mind is we wait for people to get sick and
Yeah,
then that's the problem. It's not healthcare, it's sick care.
agreed.
Healthcare would be we're taking care of you to stay healthy. Right?
Preventative measures.
Exactly. Why don't we give you incentives for they're starting that, but it's not enough. Incentive for not smoking, incentive for not drinking, incentive for exercising, incentive for give people money to get healthy. People can't afford healthy food because people pay so much for the medications. Like a diabetic person, imagine how much they have to pay
Yeah,
for their insulin or whatever other medications they have to take, while food is a lot cheaper, really, and it has no side effects.
exactly.
And we have to eat
Crazy.
anyway, right? I always tell my clients, you have to eat anyway. It's not like you're replacing one with another. You are eating anyway. If you just ate as if it was your medicine, you would save a lot on that and you would not need medicine. Food doesn't have side effects. I can guarantee it.
This I can promise you. What conversations about cancer prevention remain uncomfortable because they challenge powerful financial interests?
I think the fact that it's the only option is drug therapy, and that people can have alternatives, and that's uncomfortable. I always say that it ultimately has to be the person's choice. It is nobody's place to decide that, make that decision. So the conversation that is uncomfortable oftentimes is what are the pros and cons of me doing this. I'll give you a great life example. I had a client who had secondary cancer, so it came back in a different form. And by the way, a lot of times, 30% of all cancers are therapy-related cancers.
Wow.
30%. So
that's crazy.
So this person had cancer first time at 28, and then at 53, 54 years old, the cancer came back, and she had a surgery without getting into details, and she was told that she needed to do radiation after the surgery, but after the fact, not before the surgery. It is common knowledge that if you had radiation therapy before, it's not recommended the second time because it is so damaging, right?
Okay.
So she knew in her head she wasn't supposed to have surgery or radiation. It wasn't really a good idea. But after the surgery, all of a sudden things changed. And they said, well, you should have radiation. And she came to me and asked, what do you think? And I said, that doesn't sound right. If you were told after the surgery, and I had this suspicion, but I didn't want to say it. My suspicion was that during the surgery, there had been a surgical error that to cover that up, to make sure that the cancer.
Oh my God.
We decided, let's go with 6 weeks of radiation or something, just to make sure, right? I said, maybe I'm wrong. I told this person, go to Dana-Farber and get a second opinion. And she did. And that's basically what they told her. And I asked her, I said, okay, you need to ask this question. What are the odds of your cancer coming back in 5 years? Doing the radiation and not doing the radiation. Okay. That is a simple question. And she asked that question, and they said, if you don't do the radiation, the chances of your cancer coming back in 5 years is 5%. If you take the radiation, it's 2%.
Oh my God.
And she said, I take my chances.
Yeah, no kidding.
When you are told that, when you are questions, when you know what to ask, and when you are absolutely given the truth because you're asked, then first of all, you realize that it's not necessarily a good idea. It was just to cover up the surgical error. Okay. 2% versus 5%. No, I'll take my chances.
I'll take my chances.
Another cancer for radiation is a lot higher. So those are the uncomfortable conversations that oftentimes when I have a client, I will tell them those questions. Ask those questions. Or do you believe in your heart that if you do this treatment, it's going to heal you? And oftentimes they're like, I'm afraid this is going to make me sick. Guess what?
Mm-hmm.
If you believe that's going to make you sick, it's going to make you sick.
It's going to. Yes, because this.
Going to what? Power of your mind.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
When you go into something uncomfortable and you already have a bad feeling about it, your body is going to resist.
Yep.
Yourself.
For sure.
Why you might go into cancer treatment and fully believe that's the only thing that's going to heal you, and most likely it will work a lot better.
Yeah, for sure.
Those are very uncomfortable conversations.
What recourse, though, does someone like that have, knowing how are you ever going to prove that, first of all, that they fucked up the surgery? And what recourse do they have? Those doctors should lose their licenses.
You think they always say there's all these things they cover, right? How many waivers do you sign when you go have blood? Or blood. I remember having to do blood, just like 3 tubes of blood for something, and I had to write a protocol for it, not to have sign waivers. That wasn't as simple as blood, right? So it's a lot of obviously things that go into it. It could happen to anybody. I could see that errors could happen, but the most important thing is to admit that and admit the truth to the person.
Yeah.
Because this happened, we want to be sure. Now you can decide then, do you want to take the risk or not? It's again ultimately up to the patient. It's not up to anybody. But I think people need to ask questions. They need to challenge authority and not be afraid of challenging the authority, and have someone who can help them navigate that.
That's it, right? How does the average person know to ask these questions, right?
It's difficult. Yeah, it is difficult. Definitely. Yeah.
What truths about cancer would need to be confronted if profit were removed from the equation entirely, do you think?
I think the biggest truth is 80% of cancers are preventable, and people's lifestyle need to change. Our whole food system need to change. In the United States, a lot of things about work and stress and lifestyle need to change.
Yeah.
People are working more and more 7 days a week, myself included, up until a few years ago. People don't sleep well. There's so many things that go into that we don't think it's important, but it is important. How are we exposed to it? Environmental factors. Our food is poison a lot of times. You have to watch and read labels. Glyphosates are in our food. There is things that are sprayed on our food, or food are treated, things that are going to our water. All of those things have to change. These are difficult conversations, and the truth has to come out. And people also have to take responsibility. I think there's a personal responsibility for each and every one of us to first be educated, know, and then ask questions, question things, and take responsibility. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we choose what goes into our mouth. We choose our rights.
Very true.
We choose all of that, right? Certain things outside of our control, but for the most part, we have control over a lot of things.
So take some responsibility.
Take responsibility, yeah.
And learn to educate yourself. So if someone feels overwhelmed by conflicting health advice, what is the one place that they should return to before taking any action, do you think?
That's a difficult question, because I call it the Google University, but there's all kinds of stuff. So one thing I always tell my clients, or people come to me, is know what you're reading and your source, and don't believe everything that you see on the internet or somebody tells you and all of that. And it's an advantage being in a place where you not everyone has the scientific knowledge to do literature search.
Yeah.
And that's what I love to do. I kind of decode things for people. But if you are in a position that you're unsure, the best thing to do is really find somebody you trust who will tell you regardless of the circumstances, and can help you navigate that world, whether it be, maybe it's a doctor you trust, maybe it's someone like me, maybe it is a brother or sister, someone. But really, you need to find trust in the source that you have. Don't trust everything you read at Google University or internet or
YouTube University,
whatever. YouTube University, all of those things. The scary thing is there's a lot of things on the internet, and internet is a great thing, but it's also a very terrible thing, because people go into these rabbit holes, and it just snowballs from there. That you can find information, benefits about smoking, believe it or not. Like, you can find benefits and things about everything. I always say there is somebody out there who promotes eating high fructose corn syrup every day because it has benefits. Believe me, there is that out there. But it's unfortunate that is obviously it's a free world and people can do that. But really be questioning things that you read and really find a trusted source.
Yeah, use discernment for sure. Can you tell us about the work you do now as a nutritional health doctor and the types of patients you now work with, how fulfilling the work you do now versus the work you were previously doing, and how it's changed you as a woman, as a doctor, as a human?
Yeah. So one of the things that I took away from my work, which is the targeted therapy. So as a research scientist, a cancer research scientist, we use disease markers, cancer markers, and target those cancer markers, just think about cancer, with drugs, right? So we discover the target, we discover a drug that targets that marker, that mutation, that change that caused the disease, and we try to correct it, and that's the thing. So the system I've developed, which is I've developed myself, it doesn't exist anywhere. We use the same philosophy. The disease marker, every disease has some sort of a marker or some origin, some cause, and then we use food prescriptions targeted to that disease marker. Number one, that's one thing. But we take it one step further, because every person is unique. Your biology is unique. There's only one of you, right? There will never be another. So we use everything that makes a person unique and how their body is going to respond to that food prescription therapy. And we use targeted therapy with food instead of pharmaceuticals.
Wow.
If there are missing pieces temporarily, what my approach is, if we can't achieve that immediately or as quickly with food alone, then we use herbs and natural supplements. Say someone is very deficient in something that we can't quite do as fast with food, we do with food and supplementation.
Supplements,
That's temporary. My goal is food is your medicine and your food.
Right.
So that's how I've changed my approach. So I use pretty much the same approach I did as a scientist, except now there is not a pharmaceutical drug. It is food prescriptions, and also take it a further step based on your unique attributes, whatever makes you. And that's not just in your genes, but a lot of other things. The other thing that has changed me as a scientist, as a person, is I know in my heart that I am helping people and helping them really understand their own health outcome and taking control. For me, is I am your GPS or the driver. We'll have this point now you may get lost. We'll get you retoured. It may take us longer, but you are in the driver's seat. You're not in the back seat like our sick care system has you. Because guess what? When you get a diagnosis, a lot of people decide for you, right? And you feel like you have no control. This is what I have to do. But you do. You truly do. You just have to take control, and you have to be willing to. And there's a magic pill. Nobody has a magic pill.
No, it doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. That is so powerful.
Of course.
What types of people do you get coming to see you? People with cancer, obviously. What other types of chronic conditions do you deal with?
It was a very surprising and new to me when I literally started doing this in 2010, part-time. My focus was cancer. And then literally within weeks of when I started being with people and announcing this, people of all walks of life, all kinds of chronic conditions came into my world. Can you help me? Can you help me? And for me, it was, I solve problems, and there is a marker for a disease. If it's for cancer, for something else. So it's just basically applying the same principle. I started working with people with all kinds of conditions. Surprising to me was, and still is, and it's a pleasant surprise, would be an honor and pleasure to have it, is Parkinson's.
Wow.
I have more Parkinson's patients actively now than I do have cancer patients right now.
Wow.
And other chronic conditions, but that was something that I have seen phenomenal response to food therapy, more than anything else I've ever seen, more than any other condition. It's incredible, incredibly responsive to food therapy, targeted therapy. And much like cancer patients, Parkinson's patients are extremely motivated by their own condition. They are willing to and totally open to taking control and doing the work.
Wow.
At the end of the day, it's only you. I'm not there to feed you. You put things in your mouth, you sleep, you manage your stress, you exercise, you do all of that. So, but it's amazing, and it's an honor, and it is absolutely a pleasure. I love working with people with Parkinson's. So,
what about people with diabetes?
Yeah, I have actually quite a few people with metabolic conditions. I do a workshop actually tomorrow in person, metabolic health, obesity and metabolic health. And that is diabetes, high cholesterol, hypertension, all of those things. The thing is very satisfying about those is they are reversible. Extremely reversible. You know you can fix this. You know you can get your life back. It is incredible. It's amazing. And I tell you one story. My colleague Steve, who's happy to share openly about it. He had Parkinson's, and he has Parkinson's, and he did have 8 medications, only 2 of them for Parkinson's. The rest were high blood pressure, statins, all that kind of stuff. And he was obese, and we started working together, and he's off all of his medications. So 7 out of 8 medications gone, because all of the things are corrected. He's lost 70 pounds, he got cholesterol and blood pressure, and everything else has come down, plus 1 Parkinson's medication. So he's only on the 1 Parkinson's medication that's absolutely necessary for him to be on. He's changed his life.
That is incredible.
Thinking about 7 pills you don't have to take every day, and the side effects thereof.
Yeah. Wow, that is phenomenal. Amazing work you're doing, Laleh. Absolutely amazing. So inspiring.
Thank you.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation because, like I said, it's so important to talk about these things so that we can at least plant seeds for people, and then what they do with it is completely up to them. But at least we're talking about it to bring awareness around all of this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm still blown away by that 80% statistic that
preventable.
That's crazy. If your father could see the work you're doing now, not curing disease, but preventing suffering, what do you think he'd say?
My father is watching over me every day. I feel it. I know it. I'm not a spiritual, religious person, but I believe that there are some connections that I feel, and every single day I feel that, and I think he knows that I am doing what I'm doing because of him, and not only because he died from cancer, but also because of the discipline and the mentality that he instilled in me. Even though as a child, I really tested him sometimes for that, for being so hard on me. But now I know I never take that back. I don't know any of it. And I know that he knows.
I love it. If you could give the audience one principle to live by that would radically lower disease risk over a lifetime, what would it be?
I say that make food your medicine 1% of the time. If your food, what you eat, is not improving or supporting your health, it's not worthy of you. So I am, again, an outlaw on this, and compared to a lot of other health practitioners out there. You know the 80-20 rule? You must have heard about it. A lot of health practitioners, doctors, people out there say, 80% of the time be good. You can cheat 20% of the time. You don't have to be perfect 20% of the time. And that translates into eating healthy all week and cheating on the weekend. You've heard that, right? People ask me all the time, do you have a cheat day? Now, that only tells you that you're only good for 80%. You can only do 80%. You're not good enough to do 100%. That's one thing. That already puts that in your head, right? And it gives you an out, right? I'm not perfect. Guess what? Nobody is. There is no such a thing as perfect. But there's always room for better. For me, every day, give it your 100%. but today's 100% is probably tomorrow's 80% because you're going to get better tomorrow. Right? So ditch the 80-20% rule, because guess what? Your body and your health is worth 100%, not 80%. Just like the 80% preventable things that's over there.
Yeah.
So no, give it 100% every single time, and make food your medicine all the time, as much as possible.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. What do you think your unique skill set or superpower is that's helped you become successful, Laleh?
I think that one of the superpowers is what I've created using food prescriptions based on disease markers, and really teaching skills to people, giving the tools that they need to take control. Because I can't be with people all the time. I'm only one person. But when a person has the skills and the knowledge and the tools in the toolbox that they can do that for the rest of their life, that is what I feel like is my superpower more than anything, because I will explain that to you so you know why and how. And that way you are motivated and you know the knowledge, and you don't have to go search Google University or you are your own expert for your own body and your own health. So you make the right decision all the time. It's fine, but you do. I think that's...
I love it.
And accountability. I'm a tough love accountability person. I won't sugarcoat anything.
People need it. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
How do you define success?
For me, success is when I see and feel people who come into my life feel empowered and in control of their health and in control of their life, in clarity in that. I think personally for me, and that's what it is. And achieving what may seem impossible for people and making their impossible possible.
What does the word empowerment mean to you?
Feeling in charge of your own life in every aspect of it. But for me, it all starts with health, because if you're not healthy, it doesn't matter what you're in control of. That's going to take
our health is our wealth, right?
Exactly. Your health is good health is your true wealth. And I say, but really empowerment means that you know as a person that you can take control and you can be in control of your outcomes one way or another. We choose.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, we're going to jump into a little rapid fire sections. The next grouping of questions just be 1, 2, 3 word answer type thing. Okay. What is your favorite way to celebrate?
Gratitude.
One word to describe your 2020.
Trans.
If you could teach the world one thing, what would it be?
You are the most important person in your life, and your health is your most valuable asset.
One book that changed your life.
This is interesting. Wallace Wattles trilogy, The Science of Getting Rich, Science of Being Great.
That is so funny you say that, because I'm just reading The Science of Getting Rich now. Actually, I've
read it like more than 100. I would listen to it. I listen to it every day.
It's a very short book, so it's very easy to get through. If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
Helping people create a life that they love, starting with their health.
One thing that you love about yourself that is not related to your physical appearance.
If you want me to do something, tell me I can't.
What is one word that defines the woman you are becoming?
This year is unstoppable.
Love it. That concludes our rapid fire section. Now back to our regularly scheduled program. I created a bonus question that I did not send you ahead of time. How do you define love, both the kind you give and the kind you receive?
I think for me is not being able to imagine that your life without that thing or that person. What would be, if you imagine that without them, that would be true love for me. Yeah.
Okay. If you were to introduce yourself to me without mentioning your occupation, where you're from, your ethnicity, your religion, all these superficial day-to-day markers we use, how would you introduce yourself to me?
I dream of creating a culture where everyone's health is everyone's priority.
I love that. That's a beautiful vision. If you could step into my shoes, what is the one question you would ask yourself that I didn't ask you?
What are you most grateful for?
Okay. What are you most grateful for?
I am most grateful for my life and my healthy life. Because of the backstory I told you, my mother almost took that away from me. I was almost not born. I was an accident. She was unsuccessful in doing that. So I'm grateful for my life every day because I wake up knowing that I almost wasn't here. And I was determined to create the life that I love, and I have created that. And I want that for everyone.
That is another beautiful vision, that everyone loves their life and is grateful for it and is able to achieve the things they want to achieve.
Yeah.
Because anything's possible.
Yeah.
We are capable of achieving absolutely anything we can dream.
Yeah.
More people need to know that and believe in that and trust in that.
Yeah, exactly.
If you had the opportunity to sit down and have a 1-hour conversation with one woman, any woman in the world, who would it be and why?
I had to think about it a lot because a bunch of people, but Charlotte Bronte, I don't know if you know the author of Jane Eyre.
No.
I read this book, Jane Eyre. Everyone should read this. Everyone should. But Jane Eyre is that old book in the 19th century. Mm-hmm. And I read this when I was 12. And it made an impression on me. And it's because she explored the women's inner lives, independence, and moral and emotional strength. And I've read it probably a couple times, but that's one thing that really left an imprint. Yeah, imprint in my head.
If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
Don't look back or waste any energy on things or people who are negative, and eliminate all negativity from your life, including people.
Lastly, Laleh, if you were to deliver your last 30-second speech to the world, your corner of the world, your tribe, your people, what would that last 30 seconds sound like? What words of wisdom would you impart?
I don't know if it's going to be 30 seconds, but
That's okay.
I believe that everything in life happens for a good reason, even if it doesn't feel fair or it's really painful at the time. At any moment in life, we are exactly where we are meant to be. And be grateful for anything that happens for you. And there is always a lesson to be learned, a value. And know that even at the time something doesn't feel right, there is always something better happening and waiting for you because of that. I've experienced this time and time again in my life. And every time something happens that is not pleasant or not what I expected, I am waiting for something better because of it, or a lesson. So you are exactly where you are supposed to be or meant to be at any given moment in your life.
I love that. What a beautiful way to end the interview. Thank you so much for taking and making the time to be here with me today, for sharing about your story, your journey, the beautiful light that you are putting out into the world through the work you're doing, all the people you're helping. Thank you for your vulnerability and opening up about talking about big pharma and all of it. This conversation has been so inspiring and powerful and educational. I have learned so much. So thank you very much for opening up and for sharing. I've enjoyed every minute of it. I am so grateful to call you a friend and to have you as a member of the Empowerography community. Thank you so much for showing up today.
Thank you. It was an honor. Thank you so much for inviting me to do this with you.
It was my pleasure. My pleasure. Once again, my name is Brad Welsh, host of your Empowerography podcast, a platform that was created to help elevate and amplify the voices of women through sharing their stories. Today, my guest has been Dr. Laleh. She is a molecular and cellular biologist, a nutritional healing doctor for high achievers, and the creator of the Precision Empowerment Pathway Method. Thank you so much, Dr. Laleh. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. If you haven't yet, please be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share with all your friends. You can find me at visuphoria.ca, and follow me on Instagram at Empowerography Podcast and on Facebook at Empowerography. Please join me next time for another inspirational story from yet another amazing woman.